All right, welcome. Today we're going to talk about 6 ways to hook your audience in a speech or presentation. Giving a presentation is different from writing an essay. You have a live audience in front of you that you can interact with. Take advantage of this and use a strategy to creatively hook your audience. So again, the strategies that you have available to you when you're speaking as opposed to when you are writing are different because you have a different purpose. As we already know, introductions are really tricky but also really important because right off the bat, your audience or your reader are either going to be hooked and care about what you have to say or they're not. So it's really important that you start really strong to grab the attention of your readers, or in the case of a presentation, of your audience. So we're going to take a look at 6 different ways that you could use a strategy that you could use to hook your audience. All right, first one, shocking statement. You can open with a shocking statement. So this is some kind of fact or statistic that will, well, shock your audience. Something that's going to want to make them learn more. This is really good for speeches where you're informing about research or things like that. So perhaps when you were doing your research, maybe you came across a fact or statistic that really surprised you, shocked you. That might be a really great way to open up and get your your audience listening. Let's take a look at an example of someone who starts out a speech with some shocking statistics.
Let's talk about billions. Let's talk about past and future billions. We know that about 106 billion people have ever lived, and we know that most of them are dead. And we also know that most of them live or lived in Asia, and we also know that most of them were or are very poor, did not live for very long. Let's talk about billions. Let's talk about the $195,000 billion of wealth in the world today. We know that most of that wealth was made after the year 1800, and we know that most of it is currently owned by people we might call Westerners, European.
All right, we'll go ahead and pause there. So you get the idea. He's showing you some shocking statistics about how many people there are in the world and how much money is in the world, and how such a super small amount of those people basically have all of that money. So again, might make you interested in continuing to listen more about those statistics. All right, next strategy that we're going to take a look at is metaphor. So this one is going to ask you to get a little bit more creative. We already know that metaphors are when you compare two unlike things. And this is a powerful tool because human beings think in metaphor. It's sort of a way that you could paint a picture in your audience's head about your topic. This is especially good if you're speaking about something that your audience might not know very much about, because you can connect it with something that they do know more about and sort of make it a little bit more clear for them. So in order to write a metaphor to use this strategy, you need to think about your topic and think about what characteristics your topic has. How could you, or what could you compare your topic to? Something else completely different that also has similar characteristics. And then you start your speech with that metaphor. So to give you an example, let's say I was giving a speech about the culture of Argentina and what makes Argentina unique. Well, I also know I might be able to say something like, the beautiful country of Argentina stands out like a single soprano amid a choir of baritones. It's different, fresh. So again, I know that Argentina is unique because of its culture. I know that one soprano who sings high, singing in a whole entire choir of baritones who sing low, is going to stand out. It's going to be different. Just like Argentina with its unique culture is going to stand out and is going to be different. So I could start with that metaphor to get my audience really thinking, to get their brains thinking about my topic and get them hooked. Okay, next one we're going to take a look at is question. You can ask your audience a question to get them sucked right into your speech from the very beginning. This strategy is much more effective when you're giving a speech than it is when you're writing a paper. Now, just because your audience is there and they're live doesn't mean you actually have to get answers from them. You could pose a question that's rhetorical. A rhetorical question means you don't actually expect an answer. So, for example, you might state something like, today we are going to explore the question of, and then you state what question it is that you're going to be answering in your speech. You're not actually expecting your audience to say anything, but you're expecting them to think about the question that you posed. You might also ask them something more directly, such as, have you ever, or by a show of hands, how many people have? And in that case, you may or you may not expect an answer. Obviously, if you ask for a show of hands, then you are going to look for an answer because your audience will raise their hands. But if you ask, have you ever, you might really not want your audience to answer, but you want them to think about that answer in their head. If they're thinking, they're hooked, and you are successful. Let's take a look at an example of a speech that used a question as its hook.
Now, have any of y'all ever looked up this word, in a dictionary? Yeah, that's what I thought. How about this word? Here, I'll show it to you. Lexicography, the practice of compiling dictionaries. Notice we're very specific. That word compile.
All right, I'll go ahead and pause there, but you get the idea. She started with a question and it made you think, well, gosh, no, I haven't looked that word up. What does it mean? And all of a sudden you find yourself wanting to listen and hear more. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause here. If you'd like to continue to learn more about some other strategies to use, then please watch part 2.